Why do we even keep books? Sometimes it's, kind of obvious, they're useful, but sometimes they're not about how useful they are, but what those words meant to us at some point, what they might mean to us again in the future. We don't have to read them to know that the meaning is still there.
My phone has a frustratingly small memory, so I'm forever trying to figure out what I can delete. The thing that kind of strikes me a lot of the time is the amount of data in my text messages. And I always think, well, I could just delete the stuff in text messages. There's nothing of any importance in there. It's like it's got stuff that goes back to 2017. I've got no idea even what it might be. But somehow I'm like really resistant to the idea of deleting any of this stuff.
We live in a world where everything around us and about us has been turned into digital data. This data is collected, stored, retrieved, processed by computers like smartphones. And for most of us, it remains a kind of abstract concept.
So as part of the Control Shift Arts programme, Wistulitz has created Knit-Twitter, a collaborative artwork that creates tactile engagement with data through knitting and crochet.
Knit-Twitter is an invitation to anyone familiar with knitting needles or crochet hook and yarn to encode a message into a pattern that's based on an interpretation of your message as digital data.
The Knit-Twitter app will encode your text into binary code and then into a pattern that you can knit or crochet in a multitude of different ways, so the creativity is left open to you.
Then we ask that you complete the process by sending us your knitted or crocheted message. It will become part of a physical database made of yarn that will be full of people's hidden messages.
I'm kind of a real beginner at knitting. I was taught to do it a bit as a child, but I never really did anything with it. So for Knit-Twitter, I've been experimenting with different ways of knitting the same message. This is the one that we've called Fair Isle style. So it's like one stitch per bit, but you can kind of see the bumps and the changes in the stitches on it, and it's sort of got a kind of interesting texture, and a bigger message might make it a lot more interesting.
It's actually crochet, because I don't know how to knit, but it is crocheted into a pattern that represents some words that mean something to me. You could knit anything you like, your deepest thoughts, and it would be a secret message hidden in plain sight.
This one is the one that we called Bits in Blocks, and this is kind of my favourite. I think it's really interesting. So I've just done it with like patches of stocking stitch and reverse stocking stitch. Again, it's got loads of mistakes in it, but I really don't think it matters. I mean, it's got a message embedded in it. It's kind of curious because the pattern's so irregular. So I like that one.
Your message would be physically encoded in yarn, but completely obscure. What would you say if you thought no one was going to listen? The idea of hiding secret messages in everyday items obviously isn't new.
Intriguingly, although it's difficult to prove, there is some evidence that knitting was used as a way to encode and pass on secret messages during the First and Second World Wars.
And the seemingly innocent act of sitting and knitting is a great cover for covert surveillance.
Textiles and the associated women's work that produced them has long been associated with the encoding and decoding of complex information.
Back in the 1960s, NASA was beginning to rely on computers, and a type of digital data storage called core rope memory was deployed as part of the guidance computer on the Apollo missions. Core rope memory is made of a great long piece of copper wire woven in and out of a series of magnetic rings in a really precise pattern.
When a computer program is activated, an electric current flows through the wire, interacting with the magnetic rings and creating a sequence of on and off signals. This on and off is represented by ones and zeros, the language of binary code.
Making core rope memory is precision work that requires highly skilled labour.
The people with skills for the job were found in the textile industry, and many of them were women.
In fact, there were so many women making core rope memory that it was given the somewhat patronising name of LOL memory.
Little old lady memory.
The practice of people women using handcrafting skills to physically encode data into objects and to have that data hidden from view has a great heritage.
And then the last one I did was the one that we called Big Rib, which is a really long kind of rib-like structure. You can kind of get a feel for how different it is in different formats. And I guess this is sort of vaguely decodable.
That's what Knitwitter's about. It's making things, an object like a bit of crochet or a bit of knitting, in a pattern where the meaning is embedded in the object. We will gratefully acknowledge all contributions to Knitwitter, but we will not be decoding the messages or storing any text. That information will always stay encoded in the knitting.